So, Christopher Columbus is famously credited with discovering America back in 1492, right? It's a massive moment. It is celebrated with public holidays, towering statues, and honestly, a guaranteed spot in pretty much every single history book on the planet. But let's dive a little deeper today, because as we examine the evidence in this explainer, we're going to see a slightly different picture. You see, there is one small issue with this story. A Norse explorer named Leif Erikson actually got there first. And not just by a few days. He arrived approximately 500 years earlier, right around the year 1000 AD. That is half a millennium before Columbus even thought about setting sail across the ocean. And here is what is truly thrilling about this. We actually have the archaeological proof. This isn't some wild mythological theory, and it's definitely not a fading, whispered legend. It is established historical fact. Today, we're going to treat this explainer like an epic, cinematic detective story. We're going to trace the true Norse path across the dark, freezing waters of the Atlantic and ask why the rest of the world took so long to notice. Section 1. Stepping Stones to America. To really understand how they achieved this completely impossible journey, we have to trace their path. The Norse crossing of the treacherous Atlantic wasn't just one giant, reckless leap into the unknown. It was actually a perfectly logical series of exploratory stepping stones. Each voyage built on the hard-won knowledge of the last one. First, back in 874 AD, a Norwegian named Ingolf Arnarson made the first permanent settlement in Iceland. Then, around 982 AD, a man called Erik the Red was exiled from Iceland after a really violent dispute. He sailed further west, discovering this enormous icy highland. He named it Greenland, which is basically history's very first brilliant piece of deceptive property marketing, designed entirely just to attract unsuspecting settlers. And it worked perfectly. Colonies were established. Finally, around 1000 AD, his son Leif Erikson sailed even further southwest, eventually hitting the wild, uncharted coast of North America. Now, for a very long time, our only clues about this incredible journey were these ancient texts known as the Vinland sagas, specifically the Greenland saga and Erik the Red saga. They described a faraway place they called Vinland, a land filled with wild grapes, endless timber, and leaping salmon. But historians constantly debated them. Why? Well, because these sagas were written 200 to 300 years after the actual events, blending real historical facts with magical, legendary myths. So were they real, or were they just tall tales told around a campfire? Section 2. The ultimate archaeological proof. For decades, this debate raged on. Historians argued, archaeologists searched everywhere, and the mystery only deepened. That is, until the year 1960. A Norwegian explorer named Helge Ingstad and his archaeologist wife Anne Steen Ingstad discovered something absolutely extraordinary on the rugged northern tip of Newfoundland, Canada. At a site called Lons Ox Meadows, they finally found the undeniable smoking gun, genuine Norse-style buildings, and even more conclusively, they excavated iron bog ore smelting equipment. Guys, this is a massive deal, because that specific metalworking technology was entirely unknown to the indigenous North American peoples at that time. But the most crucial find of all was something incredibly simple. It was a small spindle whorl used for making thread. Now, why does a tiny piece of stone matter so much? Because it proved women were present at the site. Women did not accompany fast, temporary military or raiding expeditions. Their presence meant families, and families meant this was a true, intentional settlement, not just some temporary explorer's camp. Radiocarbon dating firmly placed the site at around 1000 AD. That is exactly when the ancient saga said Leif Erikson was walking those very shores. The debate was over. The history books needed updating. Today, Lancel's Meadows is a designated UNESCO World Heritage Site, serving as the absolute confirmation that the Norse were in North America half a millennium before Columbus. So you might be wondering, if they were there first, why didn't they stay? Well, they faced significant escalating conflict with the indigenous people whom the Norse called Skraelings. Combine that with the incredibly impractical, dangerous distance from their supply lines back in Greenland, and a population that was simply way too small to sustain a colony, and a permanent presence just wasn't viable. Columbus might have initiated the permanent colonization that changed the world forever, but the Norse were, genuinely, the very first European explorers to arrive. Section 3. 2 mind-blowing Norse facts. Throughout this entire series, we have been asking a central question. Were the Vikings really the brutal savages history remembers, or something far more complicated? Well, consider the year 930 AD. The Norse settlers in Iceland established a democratic assembly called the Althing, where free men gathered to make laws and settle their disputes peacefully. The modern Icelandic parliament is actually still called the Althing today, and it still meets. That means this parliamentary tradition has been continuously functioning for over 1,000 years, making it one of the oldest parliaments in the entire world. That is an incredibly sophisticated legacy of democratic governance, and honestly, something to view with genuine democratic pride. Our second fact is a brilliant, almost hilarious piece of historical irony. In 1965, Yale University proudly announced they had acquired the Vinland Map, this amazing medieval map supposedly showing North America. But scientific analysis later proved it was almost certainly a 20th century forgery. The ink contained chemicals that literally weren't even invented until the 1920s. What is so funny about this fake map is that right around the exact same time it was being secretly forged in the 1950s and 60s, Helge and Anstein Ingstad were digging up the real dirt at Lonzo Meadows. The forger had absolutely no idea that genuine, undeniable proof was being uncovered right as they were drawing their fake. Section 4. Knowledge check. All right, it is time for our rapid-fire quiz. Let's see what you remember. Question 1. Who was Leif Erikson and when did he reach North America? A. He was the first Norse settler in Iceland, arriving circa 874 AD. B. He was Erik the Red's son, who sailed to the coast of North America around 1000 AD. C. He was a Danish explorer who reached Greenland in 982 AD. D. He was the commander of the Great Heathen Army. 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct option is B. Leif Erikson was the son of Erik the Red, who reached America around 1000 AD, approximately 500 years before Columbus. Question 2. What is Lonzo Meadows and why is it significant? A. A Norse settlement in Iceland. B. An archaeological site in Canada proving Norse presence circa 1000 AD. C. The site of Leif Erikson's burial. D. A Viking Age trading post in Norway. 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct option is B. It is an archaeological site in Canada that serves as conclusive proof of Norse presence in America. Question 3. What did the discovery of a spindle whorl at Lonzo Meadows actually prove? A. That Norse people had traded with locals. B. That women were present, proving it was a settlement. C. That the Norse had sophisticated textile industries. D. That the site dated to after Columbus's voyage. 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct option is B. The spindle whorl proved that women were present, meaning this was an intentional settlement, not just a temporary explorer's camp. Question 4. Why didn't the Norse establish a permanent colony in North America? A. They ran out of ships. B. The climate was too cold. C. Conflict with indigenous people and the impractical distance from Greenland. D. A volcanic eruption destroyed their settlement. 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct option is C. They left because of conflict with the indigenous Skraelings and the unsustainable distance from their support networks. Final question. Question 5. What is the Althing? A. A Norse weapon used in single combat. B. The Norse name for the afterlife. C. The democratic assembly established in Iceland in 930 AD. D. The treaty that divided England between Alfred and Guthrum. 4, 3, 2, 1. The correct option is C. The Althing is the democratic assembly established in 930 AD, making it one of the world's oldest continuously functioning parliaments. Next time, Norse gods. Thor, Odin, Loki, and why Thursday is still Thor's Day.